If you're ever unfortunate enough to find yourself at one of these conferences for criminal justice reform, air quotes, you'll see pretty quickly, if you keep your eyes and ears open, that beneath all the rhetoric, beneath all the congeniality, conviviality, and at the highest levels of our country, that means the White House, that means the president's chief advisor, his own son-in-law. You'll see beneath the veneer of something they're calling criminal justice reform, there's really one thing. A firm belief there are too many black people in prison for no reason whatsoever other than white racism. That explains an enormous amount. Attached to that is something, attached to this criminal justice reform, there's also kind of another movement walking hand in hand. It's called the No Bail movement. And it's all about criminalizing poverty. Why should we put black people in jail for any reason whatsoever if they're not even convicted? And so whether it's Chicago, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, Detroit, Kansas, St. Louis, Houston, New Orleans, everybody's really down with this idea that, man, you know what? We don't convict them. Why should we put them in jail? Let's just bring them in front of a judge, set a date, bang the gavel, off you go without any bail. Off you go out on the streets. So when people talk about that, you know, it's usually the language is elevated and everybody's sitting there patting each other on the back as if somehow, the idea being somehow that, man, how did everybody miss this whole thing for the last 250 years in the life of this country? How did people have this archaic institution called bail? How did people have this archaic institution called jail, which everybody knows exists only to support the interests of the white male racists who are ruining this country? Okay, that's the rhetoric. That's the belief. Here's the reality.
A 90-year-old woman who was punched in the face by a stranger in downtown Portland last week is now sharing her story. That's as her accused attacker is out of jail because of capacity issues. 34-year-old Filbert Casinia is facing charges for indecent exposure, public indecency, and assault in the 4th degree. Fox 12's Sarah Hurwitz is live in downtown Portland tonight, and she has the victim's story. Sarah?
Well, good evening, Liz. You know, the 90-year-old woman who I spoke with tonight says that she showed up to see the suspect in court today, but then was surprised to hear that he had been released. She says that makes her feel uneasy knowing that he is out there. And because she says that she was attacked and for her safety, we are not showing her face or identifying her in this story tonight. She was simply walking in downtown Portland near 10th and Jefferson late afternoon on September 17th.
He was out there dropping his pants and displaying himself. Oh, yes, he was an exhibitionist, and he was shouting. But I was trying very hard not to pay attention to that and just walk along.
But what happened next for this 90-year-old woman, she says, is a blur.
I don't remember a thing. I was out cold. And when I woke up, I was on the curb in the cement, and this woman was helping me up. And I said, "What happened? Did I fall?" And she said, "No, you were punched."
Her jaw badly bruised and her hip also injured. Some other people who came to help the woman spotted the man, 34-year-old Filbert Casinia, who took off and police chased after him.
But the trauma of it is another thing. Because you don't feel confident just walking down the street, you know. I never had that feeling before.
On Friday, she went to the Multnomah County Justice Center to see the man accused of assaulting her in court, but Casinia never showed. He was released due to capacity issues at the jail. Now, right now, the sheriff's office is down 118 beds from last year. That's after county commissioners voted to defund some dorms at Inverness Jail. Emergency releases are part of the jail capacity plan, which is designed to release offenders who pose the least amount of risk to the community. But according to court papers, under additional risk factors, the papers say that Casinia is a, quote, danger to the community. And for this woman who never thought that she'd be attacked like this, she wishes the man who's accused of punching her was still in jail.
How does that make you feel knowing that he's out there?
Well, a little apprehensive, a little nervous. I think really he shouldn't be out there. But you can't let it keep you at home.
Now admit it. If you didn't see a video or see the headlines reproduced about how a black guy is going around exposing himself, and then he goes up and plays the knockout game on a 90-year-old little old white lady, and then they kick him loose from jail because he's not a danger to the community and there's too many people in jail anyway. Would you believe that if you didn't see it for yourself? Would you believe it if I just told you that? I wouldn't believe it. I would say, hey, you got to show me. Because that is so ridiculous. I don't believe there are people in this country who have reached this ridiculous level of stupidity that they're actually capable of believing something so dangerous. But that's where we are now in this country. I mean, Tucker Carlson and Ann Coulter did great columns the other day. Ann Coulter did a great column and about how she just reproduced all these statements from the mainstream legacy media. It's hard to figure out what to call them these days. Just from regular old talking heads and anchors who are saying that white people should be removed from the public square because their opinions don't carry any weight anymore. Unless you have a black person up there saying something or another, it's like just tune it out, whatever you just heard. Well, this applied mostly to the hearing on Justice Kavanaugh, but it's not just. I mean, it's not isolated to that. It's also wider, right? That anybody that gets up there, people that get up there like old fuddy-duddies like me, you get up there and go, hey, it's probably not really a good idea to let that fella back on the street. He's just been going around exposing himself. Then he goes up and he beats the hell out of a 90-year-old woman. And they describe her injuries as bruises, minor injuries. He knocked her out. That's called a concussion when you knock somebody out. That's not a casual thing in any age, let alone a 90-year-old woman. Did you see where by the way, did you see where the crime took place in downtown? The downtown, they said it was the cultural area. Oh, man. The contradictions and the clash between reality and fantasy, it's just happening more and more and more at a higher and higher rate. I don't see how this whole fantasy thing sustains itself. Jared Kushner doesn't see any of this at the White House. He doesn't see that living in the midst of one of the most truly dangerous chocolate cities in America, Washington, D.C. Well, I hope he doesn't find out the hard way. But the weird thing about that, even if he does, I have a hunch, if he finds out the hard way, he probably won't even say that much about it. Because he knows that would make a lot of black kids angry.